Chapter 26 of The Rat Race by J. Franklin. On the morning of Monday, April 23rd, the date seemed unimportant at the time, I took the early morning train into New York. Spring had done its fell work, and the club car was full of middle-aged businessmen with dark circles under their eyes, prepared to fight at the drop of a hat anyone who said they weren't as young as they felt. With Jimmy's perfume still in my nostrils, I hadn't the heart to deride them, so I did the next best thing and talked them into a poker game. By the time we pulled into Grand Central, I was $18.70 ahead, thanks to a full house just before we reached 125th Street. Instead of joining my fellow brokers in their Gadarene rush for the downtown subway express, I strolled north along Park Avenue to the Pond Club. At the Pond Club, I found Tammy engaged, as ever, in polishing the glasses behind his gleaming little bar. "My, Mr. Tompkins," he exclaimed. "You look as though you just made $1 million," he told me. "The usual, sir?" "It was nearly 3 millions, Tammy, and accept no substitutes. What I need is concentrated protein. How about a couple of dozen Kodowits and some black coffee?" The steward raised his eyebrows knowingly. "I'll mix you one of my second day specials, sir," he said. "Funny thing about that drink. One night, young Mr. Ferguson, he's a new member, sir, was feeling merry and felt a sudden sense of compassion for the statue of civic virtue in front of City Hall. Of course, I've never seen it, but they tell me that it's a very fine work of art by a person named Mac Monnies, I believe. He wasn't a member of the club, of course, but that's what I understand the name to be. So Mr. Ferguson would have nothing for it but to take one of my second day specials down to the civic virtue and give him a drink. It seemed that Mr. Ferguson felt quite sorry for the statue down there in front of LaGuardia without any company. So he took a cab downtown and poured the drink down the mouth of the statue, for a joke, like. But here's the odd thing, sir. They had to throw a canvas over the statue and send for a man with a hacksaw before the mayor decided it was proper to expose it to the citizens again. "Then bring me a double second day special, without cold chisels or hacksaws, if you please," I ordered. He smirked knowingly, but had the tact of good club servants to say nothing. I sipped his concoction, which tasted entirely unlike the eggnog it outwardly resembled. A moment later I tried another sip. It was not at all unpleasant, so I drained the glass. This, I decided, was exactly what I needed, so I drank the second one without drawing a breath. "Ah!" I beamed. "That is much better. Now, if anybody phones me, say I'm not here, unless it's one of my friends." "Would that be true of that Mrs. R., sir?" he inquired. "That lady with the red hair you told me about, Mr. Tompkins?" "If Mrs. Rutherford calls," I said, "let me know." He smiled slyly. "Then I was to deliver a message to you from her, sir. She wants you to call her at the apartment, she said. Circle 8, 7326, the number is. She said it was important." I dialed the number. Virginia answered. "Winnie?" Her voice was cool and amused. "You'd better come up here in a hurry. It's urgent." "Where is here?" I asked. "At our place, the apartment," she said. "Better give me the address," I suggested. "I can't seem to remember." "Winnie, that particular joke is getting tiresome. You know perfectly well it's 172 East 72nd Street and the third floor front. The name, naturally, is Smith." "John Smith?" I inquired. "Natch. And hurry, unless you want to be in worse trouble than you can imagine." I signaled to Tammy. "One more second day special, please." He looked worried. "Are you quite sure, sir?" he demurred. "2 is as much as I've ever seen a man take." He returned to his mystery and produced the fatal brew. I drank it slowly. By Godfrey, this was more like it. I tossed him a $5 bill. "Just remember that you haven't seen me," I told him. "Quite, Mr. Tompkins." I managed to snag an uptown taxi and rolled in comfort to 172 East 72nd Street. I pressed the button marked Smith and was rewarded by a clicking of the latch. I climbed the stairs and on the third story tapped the little brass knocker. The door opened, and Virginia appeared clad somewhat in a white silk dressing gown, and with her red hair sizzling out at me. "Come in, stranger," she said. She closed the door and settled herself comfortably, with a cigarette, on the suspiciously broad daybed. I sat down in a very deep easy chair facing her, and lighted a cigarette too. "Well?" I inquired. "Winnie," she began, "you know I never try to interfere with your private life, or try to ask questions, but don't you think this farce has gone on long enough?" I flicked some ash on the carpet and tried to look inscrutable. "You know what you were doing, of course," she continued, "and your performance in Washington was magnificent, but just between ourselves, can't you relax?" Although the windows were open, the room seemed oppressively warm. I threw back my coat and confronted her without speaking. "Of course," Virginia continued, "I know we've got to be discreet. There can always be dictaphones and detectives, and it seems that the FBI knows all about this place, but can't you just—" She jumped up and faced me. With an angry movement, she snatched off her dressing gown and flung it on the floor. "There," she said. "Is there anything wrong with me? Am I repulsive? Or don't you care?" It must have been the three specials that lifted me from the easy chair and whisked me across the room to the embattled redhead. But it must have been my guardian angel that prompted my next move. I pulled out my fountain pen and wrote rapidly on the back of an envelope, "I suspect that we are watched." Her eyes widened and she quickly grabbed her gown and draped it around her. I laid my finger to my lips. "What I came to see you about, Virginia," I said, "is to tell you once and for all that all is over between us." That was a mistake. She gave me a wink, dropped the gown, and came and sat beside me on the arm of the chair. "I too, Winfred," she said dramatically, "have become increasingly distressed by your apparent coldness." She cuddled down and planted her lips on my ear while her tongue flicked like a little snake's. "No," she continued, "the time has come, Winfred, when we must face the facts, unpleasant though they may be. I was never meant to be a part-time girl for any man." Her sharp little teeth nipped my neck savagely. "Virginia," I said, "what I had to say, what I mean is—" I never said it. Her mouth was suddenly glued to mine and she melted into my arms. "Damn you!" I told her. "There!" The apartment doorbell was buzzing like an accusation. "Tell them to go away," she murmured. "Say we're not at home." I disentangled myself, ran to the door, and jiggled the button that released the downstairs catch. "Go and make yourself decent," I told her. "I'll stall them, if you aren't too long." I listened as the footsteps slowly mounted the stairs. It was a man's step. Then came a brisk tap on the brass knocker. I opened up. It was A.J. Harcourt of the FBI. He seemed rather surprised to see me. "Good morning, Mr. Tompkins," he began. "I thought that—" "Oh, come on in," I urged him. "Mrs. Rutherford will be out in a moment. We—" He nodded. "You certainly do get around," he admitted. "Last the Bureau heard, you were a patient up in Hartford, and here I find you in—" "In a love nest," I suggested. "A den of perfumed sin, a high-priced hellhole. I got here about 10 minutes ago. Mrs. Rutherford said that I might be in trouble, but she didn't get around to explaining what trouble." He grinned. "When a girl speaks of trouble, she means herself," he orated. "Oh, is that so?" Virginia appeared at the entrance to the bathroom, completely though revealingly clad, and advanced into the room brandishing her sex like an invisible shillelagh. "And what has the FBI to do with me, Mr. Harcourt?" she demanded. Poor Harcourt looked abashed, but made a speedy recovery, getting out of the rough in one stroke. "Now that Mr. Tompkins is here, Mrs. Rutherford, ma'am," he said, "I have nothing to see you about. We heard he had gone to a private asylum in New England, and I was told to see you and ask if you knew any of the circumstances." "Oh." Virginia sat down on the rumpled daybed. "That sounds rather like a lie, you know." "That's not my fault, ma'am," Harcourt replied. My chief gives me my orders and I follow them without being asked for my opinion. If the Bureau wants to check on Mr. Tompkins through his friends." Virginia beamed and dimpled. "You couldn't do better than come to me," she admitted. "Well, here I am," I told him, "and Mrs. Rutherford needn't feel bothered. What is it now?" "We just wanted to get the rights of your run-in with the Secret Service," he told me. "Our liaison there told the director that you stood Chief Flynn on his ear and that Flynn threatened to swear out a lunacy warrant against you. How come?" I gave him a full account of my encounter with the Secret Service and ended by producing the certificate of sanity signed by Dr. Folsom. "There it is," I declaimed. The Special Agent smiled. "You're nothing if not thorough, Mr. Tompkins. Have you had any luck filling in the blank period before Easter? The Bureau would feel much happier if you could remember. Now, don't get me wrong, the case against you is closed. You're off our books. We believe that you're telling the truth, but just the same, it seems funny you can't remember." Virginia Rutherford turned on him like a battleship bringing a battery of 16-inch guns to bear on a freighter. "Perhaps he has a good reason for not remembering," she remarked. "Perhaps he went somewhere with someone in skirts." "That's just what puzzles us," Harcourt admitted. "We've had 50 agents from New York office alone making checks as far north as Montreal, in Portland, Boston, Providence, and even Cincinnati and Richmond. We've checked trains, buses, airlines, and the garages, as well as the hotels, boarding houses, and overnight cabins. There isn't anybody that can remember seeing Mr. Tompkins, with or without a woman, during that week." "Then you're still investigating me?" I asked, while a chill went down my spine. The Special Agent shook his head. "Not at all, Mr. Tompkins. Like I told you, the investigation was called off last week when we established your Z2 identity. This is just the result of the inquiries we started the week before last." "And you can't find a trace?" I asked. "Not a thing," he said. Mrs. Rutherford turned to me, flung her arms around me, and planted a far from sisterly kiss on my lips. "Winnie, old dear," she observed, "you are simply incredible." And she left the apartment. "Wonder what she meant by that?" Harcourt mused. "We're probably happier in ignorance," I told him. "Come on, AJ. I'll buy a taxi downtown. I've got to stop in at my office and gather some of my unearned income. They tell me we've made nearly $3 million in the last 10 days." Harcourt consulted his notebook. "The Bureau's figures put it at $2,870,246.71, if you want to know," he said. "So you are keeping me watched," I remarked. "What do you think?" asked Special Agent Harcourt of the FBI. End of chapter 26.